I could be wrong, but that just getting things to go your way. Think of it from that angle.
Yeah, and I love what you said about, maybe getting an answer wrong. We are from a university for sure, but when we do corporate training, I usually, try to premise some of the questions with there's really no wrong answer, right? So there's no test, there's no wrong answer. We really operate on this idea of good, better, best, right? So, hey, what comes to mind when you think about influence, and, we'll build on concepts, but yeah, getting things to go your way, right? What else comes to mind with influence?
Leading, and you follow me as I go.
Yeah,
This direction, let's all go on kind of a teamwork type thing, but someone's got to be the leader.
right. Someone's got to be the leader. And if you're influencing, there are some followers, right? John Maxwell says, if you're a leader and no one's following you, all you're doing is taking a walk, right? So there's a big difference between leading and taking a walk, right? Good. What else comes to mind when you think influence?
When I was a kid, I was considered the neighborhood good influence. Parents, if the other kids wanted their children, you probably don't believe that.
I know. What happened, Jason? What happened? Yeah, good influence.
Yeah, like having that impact. Somebody looks at you when you're following.
Yeah.
Well, persuasiveness.
Persuasiveness, yeah, excellent, right. My ability to persuade someone to do something, right? Influence. Anything else? When you think of influence? Something that comes to mind for me with influence is TV show. Suits. Maybe you're not a Suits fan, that's okay. It's been off the air for a little bit, primarily because this actress here, Meghan Markle, married Prince Harry. She no longer really needed to work, kind of torpedoed some of the show dynamic. But even before that, I was a Suits fan. Just the dynamic of the interaction of the characters, the type of plots and the type of storyline that was embedded in the legal show really was a unique dynamic. And when I think about influence and I think about Suits, there are a couple key characters within Suits that really come to mind. One is Donna Paulson, that's the character here. And the other is Gretchen Budinski. And maybe if you're unfamiliar with the show, you think, oh man, they must be like the top lawyers in the firm, right? Or maybe one of them is the senior partner, managing partner of the firm, and the other one, is like the best friend. They must have incredible influence, within the firm because of their position. And you'd be right on half of the count. They have incredible influence in the firm, but not necessarily because of what their title is. And I think that's what's really encouraging to all of us is that it's not just about title that gives your ability to influence, that gives your ability to persuade. It's beyond title. Donna Paulson and Gretchen Budinski are legal secretaries. And so you could say from the perspective of title, they want whole tons of influence from title. Now, nothing against secretaries, because my mom, she retired as a school secretary. Trust me, I know that organizations run because of the work that secretaries do, but from title, maybe you want to think, oh, there's a great deal of influence. And yet, Donna Paulson, Gretchen Budinski have incredible influence. Their actions really act as a type of domino effect. That when they do something, it impacts the rest of the organization. It is all about influence. And as we're going through this, we're pretty casual. The food just came in from Panera. Feel free to get up and get that. We'll make sure that we keep, rolling for sure, just from a time standpoint. But don't be afraid to get up and grab some food. There will be no offense taken on my behalf. And I'll just say, today started with a bang when I got up to Midland. I went to Panera as well, just grabbed a cup of coffee and worked through, some things this morning. My coffee exploded on me. So if you see some stains that I missed as I tried to clean myself up, think, man, that guy's a slob. Not usually, but some things happen like that. So, but yeah, feel free to grab some food for sure. No problem. So what I love about this concept, Donna Paulson, Gretchen Budinski, is their actions really act as a type of domino effect throughout the firm and even beyond that. And how is that possible? How is that possible? It's possible from the simple fact of what we're looking at today. Influence. John Maxwell gives a phenomenal definition of influence that of leadership. Leadership is influence Nothing more, nothing less. There are tons of definitions of leadership, but probably none that are more simply stated than this and easier to understand than this. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so as you think about, man, what does it take to be a leader? What does it take to really influence at all levels? We want to kind of flesh this out today and really think about, how do I drive my perspective as a leader? How do I expand my role of influence, no matter what my title, right? Again, Suits, Donna Paulson, Gretchen Budinsky, great influence, not great titles. Our titles don't determine whether or not we're a leader. The influence we demonstrate determines what kind of leader we are. You know, the study of leadership's been around, not that long, probably officially, less than 80 years. And it's been on a little bit of a journey. When leadership studies first started, when people really started to think about, well, who is a leader? What does it take to be a leader? What does it mean to be a leader? The very first concept of leadership was really around traits. It was about, what did you look like? That's why we get phrases like, tall, dark, and handsome. If you were tall, dark, and handsome, you were a leader. That you'd see somebody walking down the street. Oh, they're a leader. Why? Well, just look at them. Well, what do they do? Well, it doesn't matter. They're a leader just because of the way they looked, right? But as the study of leadership advanced and people began to recognize that, man, just the way that I look, just who I am doesn't necessarily make me a leader. What's going on around the things that happen to me? And leadership has advanced beyond from this concept of you're a leader because of who you are. It's advanced to the reality that you're a leader because of what you do. You're a leader because of what you do. And so this journey of leadership that started with, oh, he looks like a leader, he must be a leader. It's now expanded to, well, what does this person actually do to demonstrate leadership? And it's no longer about title. It's all based upon your influence. And this also leads us to Kuzes and Posner's phenomenal book, The Leadership Challenge. They write that leadership is not about personality. It's about behavior. And so again, as we think about leadership is about what you do, it's about influence, it's about behavior. Hopefully we're recognizing that we have incredible power over whether or not we are seen as a leader or whether or not we are a leader. It's not about my title. It's not about my position. It's about what I do with what I've been given and how I function, how I interact, and how I engage in these various settings. And what we want to really dig into conceptually is the fact that we can be a leader from a 360-degree perspective. We can lead from a holistic perspective from where we're at in the positions that we serve. A key word for us as we think about this holistic perspective is leverage. Leverage. It's so easy to lead when we have leverage because I get to tell someone what to do. I'm holding something over them, right? The problem is when we think about leading holistically or leading from a 360-degree perspective, there's oftentimes when we don't have leverage, And so this concept of leverage is critical because leading with leverage is easy because it's all about the power we have, right? And Jason, you talked about the power, the ability. It's about this power to influence a person or situation to achieve a particular outcome. What is the power that I have and how do I drive that power? Excellent. Just checking the chat here. So what is that power that I have and how do I drive that power? So as we think about leadership and as we think about the 360-degree perspective of leadership, it's this idea of how do I lead down? How do I lead across? And how do I lead up? How do I lead down? How do I lead across? How do I lead up? As you think about leading down, what are some ways in which we lead down? How do we lead down as leaders? What comes to mind? Who are we leading? Who are we leading as we're leading down? What do you think?
Like a parent to the children.
Yeah, excellent, for sure. Parent to the child, right? Definitely leading down. How else do we lead down? What are some examples of leading down? Comes to mind. Angela.
So they would be on a project with your staff as opposed to just delegating.
Sure. Yeah, great. Working with them, right? Collaboratively. Good. How else do we lead down? Who do we lead when we're leading down?
Somebody who reports to you.
Yeah, direct reports, right? I'm the boss, so of course I'm leading, right? Sure, Jason?
Well, that's what I was saying.
Okay, good. Excellent, excellent. So leading down, as we think about leading down, your subordinates, people that report to you, definitely easy to recognize how we lead down, right? But truth be told, you could lead down with younger staff. Even if they're your peers or even if they're higher title than you, people that are younger to the organization, they don't know the ropes, they don't understand the background, they don't understand the history. That's a way in which you can lead down, just not be a title, right? So subordinates, younger staff, those that are less confident, man, there may be someone that could be outranking you in title, but your area of expertise far outweighs their area of expertise in this particular topic. And so you have the ability to influence, to lead down in that case because they're less confident. You can say, hey, subcontractors, right? They're doing stuff for me. I'm leading this part of the project. So I'm leading down in that area, right? All of those types of elements. How about leading across? Who do we lead when we lead across? Our peers. Peers, good. Who else? You lead across. Anybody else come to mind?
You could also potentially be leading other departments within the organization.
Good.
They don't report to you, but they're there, and so you're across the organization.
Right. Yeah, good. Good. Other thoughts? Leading across. Excellent thoughts. Some things that we might want to think about. Coworkers, right? Work groups. Hey, there's work groups that are happening and we need to leverage them, right? So I'm leading laterally, I'm leading across, but I can't really tell them what to do, right? I don't have leverage necessarily over them. When you lead friends, man, how do I help this person get what I need as my friend, right? Leading friends is different. Suppliers, maybe you don't necessarily have direct authority over them, but you still need to get something from them. And what maybe we're already seeing is, wow, leading down, maybe that was a lot more fun because I knew more, I had things that they want. Leading across, man, I don't have as much here, right? And that's where that whole concept of leverage comes into play. How do we lead with leverage? How do we lead without leverage? How about leading up? Who do we lead when we lead up? What comes to mind?
I don't want to answer this one.
Your boss.
Your boss.
Advising your boss.
Yeah. I mean, we lead our boss every single day. The question is, do we lead our boss well? Every day you lead your boss. The question is, do we lead your boss well? Who else do we lead when we lead up? Who else comes to mind as you think about leading up? Anybody else?
Board of directors.
Board of directors, excellent, right? Who else? Who else? Anybody come to mind when you think about leading up? Maybe some thoughts, supervisors, those that are direct upline, right? But sometimes we have layers in companies. And so I don't just have to lead my boss. Sometimes I have to lead those that are above my boss. So executives. Sometimes, remember down here when we lead down, we lead those that are less confident. Sometimes we have to lead up with seasoned staff. Sometimes we have seasoned staff that we might outrank them in title, but we don't outrank them in influence. We don't outrank them in leadership capacity. And so sometimes, even though we might outrank them in title, we still have to lead up to them because of their seasoned staff capacity. Customers, I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes the customers think that they're right. I mean, we have to lead them up, right? We have to lead up into this idea of customers and what does it take to lead. Have we covered the gamut here when we think about 360-degree leadership? Leading down, leading across, leading up. I'm going to suggest there's maybe one more area that we can lead, and that's ourselves. That's ourselves. John Maxwell actually says, you are the hardest person that you'll ever lead. You are the hardest person that you will ever have to lead. And so the question is, how do we lead ourselves? How we lead ourselves impacts our ability to lead down, lead across, lead up. All of it is really contingent on what we do here in the center circle. How do we lead ourselves? We think of some examples of leading down. What are some ways that we typically find in leverage to lead down? What comes to mind? Easy ways to lead down. What do we have in our back pocket to lead down? What are the leverage points that we typically have available to us when we lead down? Authority, right? Consequences. What else?
Experience.
Experience. I know so, right? What else? All of these things are absolutely true. Sometimes when we lead down, we think a lot in the terms of the carrot and the stick, right? I can approve your PTO. I can give you the raise. I can give you a positive evaluation, right? I can deny your PTO. I can put you on a crappy job site, right? I mean, we have all sorts of leverage. As a matter of fact, when you lead down, you don't even have to be a good leader to lead down. The question is, are we leading down effectively, right? So this carrot and stick mindset definitely comes true. What are some ways that we lead across? How do we lead across? What are some ways that it takes to lead across an organization? As we think about leading or influencing at all levels, do you think of ways in which we have to lead across the organization? How does this apply to you in your role?
Well, I know I deal with multiple departments a lot at the same time, and communication, is good.
Yeah.
You get leadership and getting across.
Absolutely. The whole idea of collaboration, right? Of crosswork, of working with multiple departments at multiple time or at the same time and communicating effectively, huge part of that, right? Right. How do you lead your boss? I said we lead our boss every day. How do we lead our boss? What are some ways in which we lead our boss?
Yeah, well, if I get a cute conversation, but I have preparation for me is important. So anytime I have to meet with Dan, I'd like to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
And I want to put some thought into what the conversation's going to be, how it's going to go. So I think for all of us, right, and all of us, thinking, I try and think like Dan sometimes, which is scary. I put some thought into it and then think, okay, when this conversation happens, what are some things he might ask? So I'm prepared for the conversation.
Good. How else do you lead your boss? Confidence. Confidence, good. Good. What else?
Reputation.
Yeah, reputation. I've got a track record to build on, right? That gives me confidence, right? All of those things.
Loyalty.
Yeah. Yeah, if your boss senses loyalty, kind of foundation of truth or trust, right? That loyalty built upon trust can really open up dialogue where, okay, I understand what she's asking of me, what she's saying, because we have a trusting relationship. I know we're loyal, not that she's just loyal to me, but she's loyal to the vision that we're pursuing together, right, in the organization. All of these things are so critical and so true for sure as we think about examples. But you lead holistically every day of your life. It's the question though of how effective are we in that role of leadership?
It's like providing people.
Yeah, providing feedback, absolutely. Giving feedback, providing feedback, being willing to give that feedback. Even when it's hard, even when it's difficult, right? Leadership is not about ease. It's willing to do what is even necessary or even hard. Good. Let's think about this from your perspective. Would love to, hear some thoughts as you think about, leading down, leading across, leading up, leading south. What's the most difficult direction for you to lead? What comes to mind for you? What's the most difficult direction for you to lead? Something stick out to you?
Probably leading across is
Yeah.
the toughest, because you're with your peers. Sometimes you have to give up what you want to do.
Yeah.
What is that? But I can't think of the word that.
Compromise? Yeah,
Lots of compromise, and
for sure.
you may think you want to go this direction, somebody else has a better idea.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to humble yourself.
Right. Yeah, good. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. Someone else.
Right across as well. Establish stuff that you don't have to change yourself.
Yeah.
You have to.
And that can be hard because as you're leading across, as we think about, young leaders and wanting to grow in our leadership, a lot of times that growth is in competition with your peers, right? How do I get to the next level? Well, it's because I'm seen as someone that can do this next level better than my peers. So even as we lead collaboratively across and we try not to have that competition in the back of our mind, it's always, but there's one position that's going to be opening up, right? And I want to be the one that gets that. And so we even though we are working to lead across, we're battling all of these things in our mind as we think about, but what does that actually mean? And how do we do that? What else? Difficult in leading up, across, down?
It's the same token, taking down. So you don't want to be seen as someone who's not willing to do the same way as the way.
Yeah,
So.
right.
You gotta be humble in the fact that nothing's about.
Yeah. It sure is easier to be an effective leader with a clear conscience if you know that you're willing to do what you're asking those that report to you to do, right? The worst thing is if we have the mindset of, oh, there he is in his ivory tower, and he's telling me what to do, and yet he's never done the work himself. Man, that makes it hard to be an effective leader, to have the type of influence that you want, to be a good leader in the role that you want. Truth is, it's critically important, right, to lead and to influence well, and to influence from this holistic perspective. Critically important. But there are times we just say, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if it's in me to do this. Ever have that hesitation, the need to step up to lead, the opportunity to lead, and yet I'm just not certain that that's something that I want to do, that I should do, that I can do. What drives some of those causes of hesitancy, do you think? What drives that?
Inexperience.
Experience, yeah, I don't know, right? I'm stepping into new territory, and so I'm just not quite sure. What else? Preparedness, yeah,
You're not prepared, you're not confident.
right. How can I do this, right? Someone else?
So being uncomfortable,
Yeah, uncomfortable,
the unknown.
unknown, the zone of the unknown, right? What does this actually mean? Fear of what people will think about me, right? I have a philosophy. It's been proven really to be 100% accurate. No one wants to look stupid in front of other people. I mean, isn't that true? Do I really want to step into this role of leadership? And I don't want to look stupid, right? I'm fearful of what people will think of me. I'm afraid of failing. All of these things are happening that give us pause, maybe for hesitancy. And what's happening is we go through life and we have a battlefield of the mind that's taking place. And the question for us is, of all the thoughts that are swirling around in our head, will we still decide to step up and influence the way that we need to across all levels to be the leader that we're supposed to be? Or will we step back and wait and see who else will fill that void and fill that gap? As leaders, and as we think about how does it actually work for me to influence across all levels, it starts in here. And then it builds out there. As we go home from a day and we think, man, that was a really crappy day. The crappy day didn't happen out here. That's not where it was birthed. It was birthed in here. And this is what I'm hoping that we think through as we think about how do I lead across all levels. What happens internally eventually impacts what's happening externally, but it doesn't originate externally. It originates internally with what we have the ability to control and think about and evaluate. What am I actually going to do and how am I going to allow the situation to impact my ability still to influence? So we talked about one circle, the 360-degree leadership circle, as kind of a key concept. And the ability to build on that first circle is kind of the next part of what we want to dialogue in today. And that's a second circle theme, and that's related to your circle of control, your circle of influence, and your circle of concern. Now, control is kind of static, right? There are certain things that are under our control that we have control over. I get to decide if the alarm goes off, if I get up, or if it hits snooze for 7 times, right? I have control in that. I have control on, am I going to be diligent at work or am I going to daydream at work? I have control over certain things. It's kind of static, right? The other 2 circles, influence and concern, they're somewhat variable. They're variable. I can be concerned about a lot of things. And sometimes the concern of things can be overwhelming and impeding to me. I have influence over things, but my choice of influence is somewhat variable, right? No one demands that I influence, it's up to me. So as we think about the circle of influence versus circle of concern, these variable type circles, I want us to really drive on the fact that our influence or willingness to influence, perception of influence, is going to impact my ability to be seen as a leader. See, if we are focused on a circle of concern, we're really focused on things that are somewhat outside of my ability to control or impact. This can be things that are big, right? World hunger, world war. And this can be things that are maybe little. My boss, he's such a jerk, right? If I'm focused on my area of concern, it definitely can create a tendency to limit my area of influence. But if I'm focused on my area of influence, I'm thinking more about what I can do about my circumstances than my circumstances themselves. And we want to expand our mindset into this idea of what can I do about my circumstance, not retreat into the perspective of my circumstance controls me. And that's the difference kind of here between the circle of influence and circle of concern. Circle of concern, if we're focused on the circle of concern, we really are looking at life through a reactive mindset. What is happening to me and how will I react to that? It almost creates a type of victimhood perspective. Oh my gosh, that's totally out of my control. Oh my gosh, think of what he did to me. Oh my gosh, think of what she just said. When we're focused on a circle of concern, it actually reduces our ability to influence because we are driven by a reactive mindset. A reactive mindset, a reactive person, a reactive individual, they tend to neglect those issues that are under their control and influence, and their focus is elsewhere, and their circle of influence shrinks. I'm always focused about what's happening to me. I'm focused about what's happening out there. And that by default is limiting what I'm able to step into and actually exercise in an area of leadership. When I have a victim mindset, it stops me from thinking proactively about what I can do, and it hinders my ability to influence those around me. When we're focused on our circle of concern, our circle of influence actually shrinks. We have a very reactive focus, so much so that almost being a reactive person creates a self-fulfilling prophecy in many ways. There's a story on some research that was done, and it was really based upon whether or not individuals felt like they were lucky. And this research was done, I think, with like 10,000 individuals over the course of time. And they brought people in and they asked a simple question: do you feel lucky? Those that raised their hand went to one side of the room. Those that didn't raise their hand went to the other side of the room. So they separated the two groups. I feel lucky or I don't feel lucky, right? And then they had them go down the hall into another room, and they all got into a room, and in front of them was the same exact newspaper. And they were all presented with the same challenge. Count how many pictures are in the newspaper as fast as you can. You have your lucky group and you have your unlucky group. They started to flip through the paper. They started to count the images. But what happened on page 2, there was a half-page ad that says, "Stop counting. There are 43 images in the paper." Almost 100% of the individuals that said, "I'm a lucky person," saw that ad and stopped counting. You go to the other room, nearly 100% of the audience in the other room that considered themselves unlucky totally missed the half-page ad that said, "Stop counting. There are 43 pictures in the newspaper." The question we have to ask ourselves is, man, what is our perspective about ourselves and our situation? Am I creating a reactive mindset that hinders my ability to influence? Am I considering myself an unlucky person, and so I'm missing things around me that are completely obvious, right? That's the danger of being a reactive person. That's the danger of having this mindset of, man, I'm so focused on the situation around me, it's limiting my ability to influence. It's limiting my ability to grow. On the flip side, we think about those that are focused on the circle of influence. What can I actually do to impact the situation? Not what's happening to me, but how do I impact the situation, right? This is focused on a proactive perspective, a proactive perspective. A proactive person focuses on the issues within their control or sphere of influence. They work on things that they can do something about, right? We know we can't solve everything, but we can do something. And we're focusing our energy on those types of things. And as we do that, our influence by default grows and it expands because we're actively engaged in something. Reminds me quite a bit of like Mother Teresa, right? Mother Teresa, she's famous for saying, how do we feed the world's hungry? We start one person and we do it one person at a time, right? She couldn't solve world hunger, but she spent her life in India feeding and helping those. She looked at it as one person, and you could say, man, Mother Teresa's circle of influence was exhaustive, right? Expansive. And as her influence grew, her circle of concern really shrunk because her influence was impacting that circle of concern. How can our circle of influence expand by becoming this proactive type of person? Stephen Covey says it's really focused on responsibility, but when he says that, it's response ability. What is my response ability? I'm in a situation, I have good things, bad things, indifferent things happening. What is my response ability? That's a key difference for us as humans versus animals, right? I can actually think cognitively about what I should do, what I could do, how will I behave? And as you think about growing your influence across all levels, we have the ability to respond to the situation. As opposed to animals that, I mean, you go to the zoo, you see all sorts of crazy stuff that happens that you aren't gonna see in your office, right? Because we think about the situation, we think about what's going on, and we control what our response is and how that works. Some things to think about as we think about a reactive focused mindset versus a proactive focused mindset. Things like, oh man, I'd be happier if I had a full team, right? We just need more people. I need more staff doing work, right? Oh man, that'd be great. Well, hey, maybe I could be a better role model and amp up some staff to do things that is right now outside of what they see in and of themselves. Difference from reactive or proactive. This is happening to me. I need more staff. Man, what can I do with the staff that I have? Maybe I need to grow them, develop them, become a better role model from that perspective. If I only had a boss who wasn't such a, and you fill in the blank, Jason, I'm just kidding, right? If I only had a boss who wasn't so demanding, who wasn't so on edge, who wasn't such a jerk, who didn't right? Oh man, if I only had a boss who wasn't, well, hey, maybe if I was more organized, I'd have less contentious meetings with my boss. Maybe if I was more resourceful, I would have different ideas that I bring into the conversation with my boss, right? Reactive versus proactive. Now, I'm not saying your boss isn't still a jerk, right? My question is, what are we doing about things that we can control or we can influence, and thinking more about proactive mindset versus reactive mindset? If I had respect from the client, if I had respect from my boss, if I had respect from, you name it, right? If only this person respected me, that'd be better. Well, maybe I can be more understanding of what his or her situation is. Maybe the customer is frustrated with me and I need to understand and think a little bit about what's going on in her life, or life through her lens. If I could just get a day to get things done, right? How are so many people able to get more things done than me? They must have more hours in the day. Maybe it's more about, man, I need to just be more diligent. I need to be more diligent. Reactive versus proactive, expanding our influence versus perceiving that I'm a victim of the circumstances that I'm around. If the environment was more conducive, well, maybe it's more about how can I seek out personnel? How can I understand? You know, the truth is though, so often we dwell in this reactive mode. Let me ask you, why is it so easy for us? And if you're like, man, I'm a positive person, I don't dwell in the reactive mode. Okay, why is it so easy then for people? If it's not you, why is it so easy for people to dwell in kind of a reactive mode to life? What makes that such an easy space for humans to play in? What do you think? What comes to mind?
If you're thinking ahead.
Yeah.
In this process.
Yeah, if you're not going to be reactive, you got to think about, man, I got a plan. I got to do something. I got to think about, I'm here. Where do I go next? Right? Takes more work. Right? Why else? Why is it so easy to live life in a reactive mindset? What do you think?
You're covered by the excuse.
Sure.
It wasn't in my control, man.
Oh, yeah. I had nothing to do with it. Right?
Not my problem.
Someone else's problem. I'm in the same boat as you. Kind of sucks to be us, right? Oh crap. What else?
It's what's known is happened essentially.
Oh,
So you know what it is as opposed
Yeah.
to. You gotta figure out.
right.
You know,
Yeah. We're in this mess. We all know it, right? I'm here with you. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I love that phrase. It is what it is. And yet, what are we going to do about it? Right? It is what it is. What are we gonna do about it? It's so easy, I think, to live in a victim mindset. It's so easy to dwell in a reactive perspective. And one of the reasons that I think it is identified by John Acuff. He's written a phenomenal book called Soundtracks. And what he actually does is he says, what happens in our minds is we actually have playlists that run in our minds. And the reason why we're reluctant to step up and lead sometimes, the reason why we're reluctant to allow our influence to expand, and it's so easy to be in a victim or reactive mindset, the reason is because of the soundtracks or the broken playlists that are driving our thought process. It's a lot easier to deal with kind of the, oh, sucks to be us, than to jump up and say, yeah, but this is what could be the case. He writes in this book, a couple key thoughts. Even if we're very deliberate in other parts of our life where we think, okay, I can control this, I can control this. A lot of times, even if we're deliberate in those areas, we still think I have no control over my thought life, right? I can't control what I'm thinking about. We're very limited in our ability to control that, but this is what I love. He says, what you think influences what you do, which influences the results you get. What you think influences what you do, which influences the results you get. I love that because it reminds me of something that I've used probably 10 or 12 years. It's this idea that our thoughts equal our outcomes. Our thoughts equal our outcomes. Similar to what Acuff was just writing about. I'll run through this quickly. If you continue to think about the things that you've always thought about, you'll continue to get what you've been getting, right? I'm just thinking the same thing. So of course I'm going to get the same result. It's the definition of insanity to think that something's going to be different. I'm going to think the same, I'm going to get the same, right? But when you change the way you think about things, all of a sudden the things you think about change. I'm going to change the way I think about things. And now the things I think about have the capability to change. It's a minor shift, but it opens up a huge potential opportunity for us to flesh out what John Acuff was just writing about. Then when the things you think about change, the questions you ask will change. Why? Because I'm thinking about something different. I've got new questions based upon new thoughts all of a sudden. When the questions you ask yourself and others change, the information you get will change. And man, information is power. So when the information you get changes, the choices you make change. Why? Because we have new information. If we have new information on a situation that might impact and allow us to do something different or better, we'd be crazy to go back and do what we used to do, right? No, we have new information now, and so that's going to create something different for me. When the choices you make change, the things you do will change. When the things you do change, the outcomes you get will change. And when the outcomes you get change, your ability to get what you want changes. Your thoughts equal your outcomes. But we have to make that mental choice to stop being reactive in what's happening to us and start thinking about what I can do as a leader of myself, of my direct reports, of my peers, of my upline, wherever that sphere of leadership is. We have to start thinking that I have it within myself to lead regardless of my role. I have it in myself to lead regardless of my level. It's in me, but it's my choice to exercise that leadership. It's my choice. You know, it's kind of funny. The last thing I kind of want to bring out to us today as we think about influence and at all levels is this fallacy of choice, right? It's my choice to think about these things. It's my choice to lead. No, if you're a leader, I don't know that you really have a choice. It's similar to someone who's on a diet. Someone that's on a diet, you can get home from work and you can say, man, I'm really hungry. And you could look at the bag of Ruffles that's in the cupboard. You look at the apple that's on the counter. You say, I have a choice. I'm on a diet. I have a choice. Do I go to the Ruffles or do I go to the apple? You know what, though? If you're on a diet, you really don't have a choice. You don't have a choice if you're on a diet. You don't have a choice to say, I could do the Ruffles or I could do the apple. No, you are on a diet. You have no choice. Guess what? You have to go to the direction of the apple. The fallacy of choice is to think that in all situations, we have a choice of what we can do or what we can't do. And you don't always have a choice. We sometimes make the wrong decision, but that wasn't based on a choice. Our issue as we think about leaders, as we think about ourselves as leaders, as we think about influencing at all levels, it isn't, should I step into leadership here? Do I have a choice to lead? No, we don't have a choice. We're leaders. And so it's not a choice of whether or not I lead or don't lead. It's not a choice of whether I'm going to live reactively or proactively. It's not a choice. We just sometimes make the wrong decision. The fallacy of choice is that we don't always have a choice. We have to live out who we are supposed to be. And as leaders, people are counting on us to lead. And if no one out there is counting on us to lead, at least we are counting on ourselves to lead. It's a fallacy of choice to think, should I lead or shouldn't I lead? It's a fallacy of choice to think I have influence or don't have influence. No, we have influence. The question is, will we leverage that? Will we use that in all areas? So some things that I hope we remember, simple things. Leadership is influence. It's not a fancy definition, but it's one that can stick with us. Leadership is influence. Second key thing is we decide how we influence. We decide that. We can grow our influence. It's not stagnant. It isn't based upon title. It isn't based upon position. We can grow our influence, and our influence will change results. We get the benefit of living out leadership every day because we're breathing. We get to decide, how will I influence today? And we get to influence across all levels. I used to consider myself a young leader. I don't anymore, unfortunately, I guess. But man, it's not about age. It's not about position. It's not about title. It's not about any of that. It's about influence. And my hope for you and my hope for myself is that regardless of circumstance, we step into the role of influence that we can and need to play. All right, that's all I got for you. Thanks a lot, everybody. Really appreciate it. And good luck as you exercise influence in your life.